Namah Shri Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Swamine Tapaharine.
So, namaste and welcome again back to our discussions. Yesterday, the day before, in the last class, we discussed about the origin of Ayurveda and why Indra was chosen. And I was mentioning also that there is a lot of mythology here in the origin of Ayurveda. What is this story? We need to really look a little bit deeper. Now, after a lot of thought, in Ayurveda also it is mentioned that the devatas are nothing but symbols of, the higher states of awareness and consciousness in nature. This is mentioned explicitly in Caraka-Saṁhitā. So if you look at Brahma, Brahma is actually, it means expansiveness, Brihvardhane. So that which is expansive, it is a state of consciousness that is, unimaginably expansive. So the knowledge, if you want to get the knowledge of Ayurveda, you have to have a consciousness that is as expansive as the universe. In fact, until you become one with the universe, you cannot know the knowledge, get the knowledge of Ayurveda, because the knowledge of Ayurveda is inherent in creation. Because everything is happening according to a law. Karananuvidhayitvat karyanam tat swabhavata. Everything follows a law. And so that, where is the knowledge of Ayurveda? It is not created by humans. Humans only can understand and preach and transmit. So it's called avabodha and upadesha. In Charaka-Saṁhitā, this is mentioned in Sharira Sthanam, Purusha Vichayam Shariram. Yavanto hi Purushe Murtimando Bhava Visheshas Tavantaha Loge, Yavanto Loge, Tavanta Purushe. So in that way, Brahman is like our Antaratma. So everything, whatever devatas you see outside, it is all represented inside. Indro Ahankaraha. So Indra is that conscious awareness. So knowledge exists first in nature. And I can also tell you, there is another, just a minute, I will exactly give that quotation. Just a second. I will just... So there is a verse also, I am unable to locate it now. I will share it a little later so that we don't lose time. Which says that devatas actually doesn't mean that they exist physically or they are like people. They are higher states of our own consciousness. So by enhancing our mental awareness, we are able to, get into that higher state. That is what is actually, in a mythological way explained as uh, the various devatas. So now, if you look at Brahma, Brahma is the highest state of consciousness in which we are one with the whole universe. That is the whole idea here. So that what Ayurveda texts are telling is that the knowledge of Ayurveda comes from nature. It is inherent in nature. That is what this whole mythological story is, pointing us out. It is not created in the human mind. It exists in nature. So another textbook says Brahma Smrtu Ayusho Vedam Prajapati Majigrahat. Prajapati is the creator. It is, nature itself. So nature is existing in the knowledge of Ayurveda. That is why the organs function according to the laws of physiology. Every time a new child is born, the DNA, the organs, they are all formed, according to these rules. So what is there in nature? That is Brahma, Prajapati, and Ashwinis. And this knowledge is not in the domain of human awareness. We are not aware of it, but our bodies are functioning according to these laws. So that inherent law in nature is called Brahma, and its expression is called as Prajapati. I hope that point is clear. Brahma is the law, and Prajapati is the expression of that law. So every time a creation happens, this law of Brahma is manifesting. It is as if the whole creation remembers these laws. We humans don't remember it. We have no awareness of it. Everything in our body happens automatically. So inside our body, at the level of the body, we can see that there is a lot of balancing and adjustment happening. Ashwinis represent the opposites. So as these laws manifest, as life manifests according to these laws, there are chances of aberration happening. Everything is controlled by the balance of the opposite. So Ashwinis are called as Deva Bhishaja. Now, if something goes wrong, my body has the ability to heal by itself. That is why Ashwinis were called as Deva Bhishaja. We don't see them. Healing is happening inside our body automatically. When the body follows the laws of nature, everything happens normally. At times, there is a deviation. Whenever a deviation occurs, the function of the Ashwini Devata is to bring back the balance. Like, for example, if too much of heat, body becomes too hot, then we will start sweating and the body will cool down. So negative and positive feedbacks are continuously happening. This phenomenon of that body self-regulation was represented by the term Ashwinis. So even if you look at our sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, you can say they in some way resemble the concept of the Ashwini Devas. So in our body, every cell is functioning according to the laws of nature. Every time a new cell is created at the level of Prajapati, whenever life replicates itself and propagates itself, these laws are remembered. That is why it's saying the whole creation happens with the memory of this knowledge of Ayurveda. Brahma. Brahma Smrtva Ayusho Vedam. It is mentioned that the knowledge in Brahma is in the form of a memory. But as humans, we do not have awareness of this knowledge. So that is why that is why Bharadwaja goes to Indra, because we need to bring that knowledge into our awareness. That is what we call as the discovery of Ayurveda. So Indra Jnane, when that knowledge comes into our conscious awareness, we say that Ayurveda has been discovered. So Bharadwaja's meeting with Indra is nothing but bringing that awareness of Ayurveda which is there in nature. So Ayurveda says, where should we study the knowledge of Ayurveda? From nature itself. Soyam Ayurveda Shashwado Nirdishyade. bhava swabhava nityatvad. So one of the reasons why Ayurveda is said to be Shashvatam is not in the form of textbook. Ayurveda, what the writings of Ayurveda, I would call it not homeostasis. I would once again request, please put your questions, to everyone, because when you are questioning or putting your question just to me and I answer it, others don't know what I am answering. So I've just received a question: is self-regulation homeostasis? I would use another term, homeodynamics. There is no stasis. Nothing in the body is in a state of stasis. So my I have coined a term called homeodynamics because this balancing is very dynamic. That is why we have the idea of Ashwini, day and night, the opposites. And they are always shifting according to the need. This continuous shift is happening. So the body is balancing itself through a process of homeodynamics, not homeostasis. Homeostasis is a modern concept in physiology. And that word stasis means everything is remaining unchanging. Stas. Sta is also coming from the Sanskrit root sta, sthiti. So Ayurveda does not say the doshas are continuously Vriddhi-chayatmaka. They are going up and down, and like a pendulum, they are continuously moving. So, because everything in nature is moving, we are also moving accordingly. So, the way the body is balancing itself, we can say, is a process of homeodynamics. Now, this would be one new concept that Ayurveda could bring into physiology. Instead of homeostasis, we redefine this as homeodynamics. So, Chakrapani clearly tells in one place, na shabdarupasya ayurvedasya nityatvam. Kim tarhi artharupasya ayurvedasya nityatvam. So it is not because I write something in Sanskrit doesn't mean it becomes eternal. The eternal nature of Ayurveda is in nature itself. In the state, what Brahma remembers is infinite. So there is a discussion in Sushruta-Saṁhitā and Charaka also why this human transmission happened. Because the knowledge of Ayurveda in nature is so vast. Sahasra laksha slokai kritam. That is symbolic again. Because that idea of infinite knowledge. Nobody can fathom the knowledge of Ayurveda that is there in nature. You have to become as big as Brahma itself to know that. That is why here it is mentioned that we cannot. So, that entire knowledge which is there in nature, only a mind of a Brahma can contain it. A human mind cannot contain it. So, Nati Sankshepa Vistaram, Sarabhodam Jnanam Ayurvedasya, that has been transmitted to the human beings. And that is this process of calling Ayurveda Avataranam. That vast knowledge of life that is ingrained in nature itself is slowly brought into the ken of human awareness. So Bharadwaja meeting Indra is actually symbolizing that process of tapas and mental transformation which a human being, and not an ordinary human being, is a rishi. This human being undergoes to bring, now that it becomes conscious knowledge of Ayurveda. For a human being to make the use of the knowledge of Ayurveda, to live consciously, because that is what I just discussed before our class started. What is Aniyata Ayu? Everybody's Ayus is Aniyatam because it is not certain. We have the freedom and the chance to put the right efforts to reach 100 years or 100 plus years. It depends on our actions. Nobody is guaranteed 100 years when they are born. But there is a promise. If you live a healthy life, you can live 100 years. Unless you are a niyatayu or too much of daivam you have carried from a past life, all of us have a birthright to live for 100 years. But what makes the difference? The knowledge of Ayurveda. And that knowledge of Ayurveda will be useful to us only if it comes into our awareness. So from Brahma to Prajapati to Ashwinis, it is automatically being transmitted. And it is transmitted up to Indra. It means that The knowledge of Ayurveda is ready for us to be received. If you put the effort up to Indra, it is there in our subconscious mind. We are only unraveling the knowledge of Ayurveda. As Swami Vivekananda used to mention, education is nothing but the unfolding of the knowledge that is within us. So this verse is telling us that the knowledge of Ayurveda is an inside nature. It is also inside us in the form of Indra. It is potentially there. We can easily become aware of it if we take the efforts. And that inner unfolding of this knowledge, that is how we learn, that is how we become awakened in the knowledge of Ayurveda. So we have to awaken in the awareness of Ayurveda. And this Ayurveda Avataranam is that process, bringing down that knowledge of Ayurveda into human awareness. That is what is called as Ayurveda Avataranam. So not by any book shall we learn this. Books are only aids. It prepares our minds. The knowledge of Ayurveda is obtained directly from nature itself. By listening to the movement of the river, the crackling of the leaves, the lives of the animals, as we look around in that state of inner purity, this knowledge of Ayurveda unfolds in our own mind. That is why we say from Brahma to Prajapati to Ashwinis to Indra, this transmission is all constantly there in the background. From Indra, we have to bring it to our human awareness. How many of us can do that? Not everybody. Somebody like Bharadwaja who's an Ugra Tapa, he takes the effort to bring that knowledge of Ayurveda into our conscious awareness. And then all the systems are created so that everybody, then the big yajna begins. Let us awaken the whole of humanity in this awareness of Ayurveda. Adhidi. So there is no question of the next question. How can we prove that Ayurveda is Nitya? See, Ayurveda is Nitya because nature is Nitya. That is all it means. So it all depends on how you define Ayurveda. As I told you, when we say Ayurveda is Nitya, we think Caraka-Saṁhitā is Nitya or Sushruta-Samhita is Nitya. It is not Nitya. Shabdarupasya Ayurvedam na Nityam. The nature is Nityam. That's all it means. Soyam anyatra avabodhobadeshabhyam. Caraka-Saṁhitā says the human understanding of Ayurveda is not Nitya. The human transmission of Ayurveda is not Nitya. Anyatra avabodhopadeshabhyam. Soyam Ayurveda shashvato nirdishyate. Because why is Ayurveda Nitya? Because water, even today, is behaving like water. The nature of water is the knowledge of Ayurveda. So science is also possible because the laws of nature have not changed. One day suddenly fire will not decide that I will not burn anymore. Let me start wetting people. It has not happened. So the universal laws of nature have always remained the same. Even today, even if you look at it from modern biological science, the same 4 nucleic acids, the alphabet of life has not changed since millennia. Since billions of years, it has not changed. So everybody has this problem because when we say Ayurveda is eternal or Nitya, they are thinking of the systems of Ayurveda. Sarvam Kritakam Anityam. Anything that has been created is Anityam. So if you have written a textbook, it is Kritam. So Kritasya Nasham. So the textbook is not Nitya. If I create a treatment system, that is also created. So Akritakasya Ayurvedasya Nityatvam. Kritakasya Anityatvam eva. So you have to only ask the question, what kind of Ayurveda are you dealing with? Anything other than the natural laws of life is all Anitya. Textbooks have been destroyed. Agnavesha Tantra was not Nityam. It is gone. Today we have only Caraka-Saṁhitā. Caraka-Saṁhitā also was Anityam. Dridabala had to reconstruct it. So we don't know how many centuries this may get lost. So the only thing that can be preserved is the methodology to keep rediscovering Ayurveda. In Caraka-Saṁhitā it is mentioned the rishis forgot Ayurveda and they went to Gramya Jivitam. They got all the illnesses. Then they are putting effort to rediscover it again. So today people are objecting. The reason is we are saying that whatever is written in Caraka-Saṁhitā is. So if you look at very carefully, we don't even know whether the book that we have with us today is the original. Hundreds of manuscripts are available and there are a lot of variations across these manuscripts. Which one can we say is original? So the text also says always try to do Patashuddhi, find out what is Arsham, what is Anarsham. And I believe Shankaracharya says na vakyasya vastvanvakyanam kriyanvakyanam va pramanya lakshanam. निश्चित फलवत् विज्ञानोत्पादकत्वं वाक्य प्रामाण्य लक्षणं तद् यत्र अस्ति तत् प्रमाणं यत्र नास्ति तद् अप्रमाणं. So a vakya doesn't become pramana because it comes from somebody or it is talking about something. Nischita phalavat vijnanotpadakatvam. Is it based on truth? If it is based on truth, when you apply that knowledge, you will get the result. So if it is not you are not getting a result, that vakyam is not correct. So Ayurveda tells a critical way of reading the textbook, not blindly believing in it. The idea is to go beyond the shabdas into the artha. Artha tattva vinischaya pradhanam. That is a good shastra. Otherwise it is like shabda jalam maharanyam chitta bhramanagaranam. Vagvaigari Shabdhajari, Shastra Vyakhyana Gaushalam, Vaidushyam Vidusham Tadvat, Bhuktaye Natu Muktaye. So Ayurveda is not a garbage of words. There is a deep insight of life that this gives. And that insight is based on the laws of nature. And the laws of nature are eternal. And so Ayurveda is eternal. The knowledge of life is eternal. But humans create again and again, get the awareness, they lose it. Again they get it, they lose it. So we have to continuously do that tapas. That is why Indra Mugra Tapaha Buddhva Sharanyam Apareshwaram. To preserve this knowledge of Ayurveda, you need to do tapas. And that is why it is said is Rishi Proktam. Because Drashtaro Rishaya. They see this knowledge. Why? Because of their tapas. So with tapas, when you get that Jnana Chakshus, through tapas, you have to awaken your Jnana Chakshus. Through that Jnana Chakshus, you will get the knowledge of Ayurveda. No other way. No other way. How many times ever we read the Caraka-Saṁhitā, we analyze it critically, do all the intellectual gymnastics, you will still not get the insight of Ayurveda. Maharshayaste dadrushuhu yathavat Jnana Chakshusha samanyam cha vishesham cha gunan dravyani karma cha Samavayam cha yat jnatva tantroktam vidhimasthita lebhire paramam sharma jividam chapya nitvaram. So this is mentioned in a few verses that is going to come just now. So I will start showing the text now. We will go back to where we discussed yesterday. So I hope is the answer satisfying? Somebody about the Nityatvam. Are you convinced? Do you have any further questions about it? Okay, there is no response. So I hope I answered that question. I see a name, Ripi Ete. I don't know if you're still there. I was trying to answer your question. Okay, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can
It's
see.
visible.
Yes, sir, we can see.
So Brahmana hi yatha proktam. This verse is very, very important to understand. This is not just a mythological, story, but there's a very deep symbolism behind this. And it is here that it is so emphatically and beautifully explained to us that Ayurveda is the knowledge that is inherent in nature, and that we have to continuously engage in the efforts to bring that knowledge into our awareness. And when we live according to that awareness, we are able to achieve longevity. There is no other way. There is not going to be a pill or a vaccine which will help us achieve, longevity. Today, the world, when I was a student, I heard health for all by 2000 AD. WHO was talking about it. I thought, okay, 2000 AD, everybody will become healthy. It looked like as though WHO was going to package health and send a courier to everybody. Open the courier, drink some magical potion, we all become healthy. It was almost like that. But come 2000 AD and AIDS gripped the whole of humanity. There was total fear of even annihilation of the human race. And then, we became wiser. We said health for all is not possible. We cannot package health and give it into a bottle just like that. So, what can be done? We can give health care for all. Universal health coverage, that became the new mantra. And what happened when COVID came? The countries with max access to the best healthcare facilities, they suffered the most. So even healthcare is not enough. Not having all the best hospitals, we can still die. That is what is happening. Number of hospitals are increasing. Number of medicines are increasing. Number of medicines being banned are also increasing. And our health is also, disease is also increasing. So this is the situation. After the pandemic, if you think, there is a lot of things to reflect and learn. So what Ayurveda says is that what we need is to nurture health intelligence. Otherwise, I call this as Arogya Buddhi. What we need is Arogya Buddhi. Without Arogya Buddhi, we cannot achieve Arogya. So the real way to create a healthy society, to enhance our longevity, is to empower the individual to live a healthy life. I must decide, okay, this is what I will eat. This is what is good for me. Parikshya hitamashniyaat deho hyahara sambhava. Examine, check before you eat something. Because deho hyahara sambhava. Your body is created out of the food that you eat. So eat responsibly, sleep responsibly, drink responsibly, live responsibly. Vishema deva hitam yadayu. Bhadram garne vishruniyama. Let me hear only what is Bhadram. Bhadram Bashema. So this transformation of the individual into a healthy life. That is what this verse is telling. Brahmana hi yatha proktam ayurvedam prajapati jagraha nikhile nada vashvinautu punastada ashvibhyam bhagavan chakra pratipedeha kevalam. So this knowledge is available in nature. It is ingrained at the level of Brahman. The whole universe vibrates in the knowledge of Ayurveda. And every time a new life is created, it follows the laws of Ayurveda. And this knowledge of Ayurveda has been transmitted up to the doorstep of human consciousness because Indra is aware of it. You just have to awaken your mind and reach out to the Indra in our mind, in our own higher mind, and then that knowledge becomes ours. So that is what Rishi Prokto Bharadwajas Tatsmad Shakramopagamat. So anybody who wants to learn Ayurveda should reach out to his or her own Indra. Indra is Amara Prabhu, Devendraha. So anybody can achieve that state of Indratvam by doing the tapas, Shatakratum. 100 yagas when you do, you become an Indra. What is yaga? Yaga is tapas. So when you do that tapas and your tapas becomes mature, you become an Indra. And Indra is a Sahasraksha. And with that Sahasrakshatvam, you are able to perceive the knowledge of Ayurveda that is in nature. Is this clear? So I hope we can move on to the next verse. If you have any questions about this verse, we can answer or move on to the next. Okay, I understand. Take it that there are no questions, so we move forward. So the next verse is telling the context. Vighna bhudaha yada rogaha pradurbhuta sharirinam tapopavasya adhyayana brahmacharya vradayusham तथा भूतेषु अनुक्रोशं पुरस्कृत्य मनहर्षय समेताः पुण्यकर्माण पार्श्वे हिमवत शुभे. So when the diseases, yada rogaha vignabhuta pradurbhuta, sharirinam pradurbhuta. So शीर्यते अनेन इति शरीरं तदस्य अस्ति इति शरीरे एतेन शरीरं स्वत एव शीर्यमाणं रोगसम्बद्धात् तु नितरां शीर्यत इति सूचयति. So our body's sharira means शीर्यते अनेन iti, that which is disintegrating. Okay, there is a question, Brahma to Prajapati. So Brahma is the knowledge, that is there in nature. In Prajapati means when it expresses in creation, then we call it as the transmission from Brahma to Prajapati. For example, because we are all familiar with biology today, see, in our cells, the knowledge is coded in the DNA, genetic material. Through a process of transcription, translation, continuously, according to your genetic code, there is a translation happening. So every time this protein synthesis happens, it follows the genetic code. It looks at the genetic code and then the proteins are created. So Brahma can be considered like that blueprint, the genetic information that is inherent in your cell. And Prajapati is the translation. And in this process, if some problem happens, the Ashwinis will come and try to correct it. So this is how your cell functions. If you go inside a cell, you can see Brahma, Prajapati and Ashwinis. Without our knowledge, it is automatically happening. When you become an Indra, you see this. If you do not awaken your consciousness, you don't have this knowledge, you don't know what is happening. But the transmission from Brahma to Prajapati to Ashwinis to Indra is happening in nature automatically. Whether human paramparas exist or not. That is why it is said to be supra-human or extra-human. This transmission is not human. So anybody who decides to get this knowledge, so is it clear? Kalyana Krishnan Shankar was able to explain your question, Brahma to Prajapati. So you can go into a cell and also see this story of Brahma, Prajapati, Ashwinis. I have tried to visualize what is happening inside a cell and it looks so fascinating. Brahma Smrutva, every time the DNA is, separating into RNA, and that RNA is, you have going through this transcription, translation, messenger RNA, tRNA, mRNA. You can see this transmission happening. Then the protein synthesis happens, genomics, proteomics. And then as the body is reconstructed, some errors keep happening. And then your regulatory systems come and correct it. That is the work of Ashwinis. And only we are not aware of it. So that everything in nature is happening like that. So, in spite of all this, this body, shariris, we are all shariris. Shariris means we all possess a body that will eventually be destroyed. Shiryate anena iti shariram. So, if our bodies are going to get anyway destroyed, and if we get a roga, then it is going to be destroyed much faster. So it is Vigna Bhuta. The rogas are Vigna Bhutas because it destroys our body prematurely. And the body is an instrument to do something. What is that? What is the body an instrument for achieving? Tapaha, Upavasaha, Adhyayana, Brahmacharya, Vratayusham. So if our sharira is not healthy, then we cannot do tapas, we cannot do upavasa, we cannot do adhyayana, we cannot do brahmacharya, we cannot do the vrata. So here interesting definitions are given. Brahmane mokshaya charyam brahmacharyam upastha nigrahadi vratam ipsita kamo niyamaha. So some definitions are interesting. And upavasa also. उपवास क्रोधादि परित्याग सत्याद्युपादानम च. It is not fasting. Upavasa means क्रोधादि परित्यागः सत्याद्युपादानम च. उपावृत्तस्य पापेभ्य सहवासो गुणैः यः. So उपावृत्तस्य पापस्य गुणैः सहवासः. That is upavasa. So we are trying to transform ourselves to a higher state of consciousness. And that is the tapas, the heat that we create. Tapas is not falling prey to our sense organs or minds. And cultivating these higher, qualities. And brahmacharya is also brahmane mokshaya charyam brahmacharya. And upastha nigrahadi, control of the sexual organs, all that is only a aspect of that. The key focus is that you have to expand your consciousness. Brahmane mokshaya charyam. And vrata is ipsita kamo niyamaha. So controlling our mind from indulgence. So that is why when you give up something that you like, preventing your mind from becoming addicted to worldly objects, that is what is called as vratam. So all these things require a healthy mind and body. It is not when you are sick. So if you are not able to follow this, it means you are already sick. There is some sickness, because if your mind is full of ojas, if you have health, then tapas and upavasa and brahmacharya will happen automatically. A healthy body is needed for the mind. So if your body is sick, you will have craving. You need not necessarily have big physical illness to not be able to do. So only a healthy person can, in them automatically tapas, upavasa, adhyayana, brahmacharya, everything will come. So when these diseases started manifesting, threatening the already fragile body to be destroyed quickly, and made the people incapable of tapopavasa. And today in Kali Yuga, we can see everybody is incapable of tapopavasa, adhyayana, brahmacharya, vrajayusham. Even when we are free from illnesses, we are not having the capacity to do tapas, upavasa, adhyayana or brahmacharya. And this is why I say Ayurveda should be used. Because if Ayurveda is properly used by society, we will see more people doing tapas, more people doing upavasa. That is the sign of the use of Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is making our sharira capable of doing tapas, capable of doing upavasa, capable of brahmacharya, capable of vrata. Today we are incapable of all these things. So there is another question. Again, it has comes to me directly, so I am sharing it. So the problem was, So here is a question, sir. While studying Trayopastamba, I heard that Brahmacharya is declared as Abrahmacharya by Atreya. Not by Atreya, by Vagbhada. Atreya is calling it as Brahmacharya itself. So why was it called as Abrahmacharya? Because, see, after a while, the actual definition of Brahmacharya was Brahmane Mokshaya Charyam Brahmacharyam. It has nothing to do with celibacy. Because in those days, rishis were not celibates. They led a natural householder's life. They were not addicted to sexual indulgence, but they were doing it just for the sake of progeny, and it was natural. So at that time, brahmacharya did not mean celibacy alone. But later, what happened was people began to associate brahmacharya just with celibacy. See, if you are not doing spiritual practices and you become celibate, it is of not much use. We will only become frustrated, and all that energy will not be channelized to a higher source. So the focus should be on Brahmasya Ayane Charyam, then only it becomes Brahmacharyam. If that is not there, then simply controlling Upastha and all is not useful. So when the system became such that in Vagbhada's time it was already Kali Yuga, people were become very Vishaya indulgent. So it became necessary to use the word what people were not brahmacharis at all in Vagbhada's time. So Abrahmacharyam had to be controlled. So one of the Upastambhas was Abrahmacharyam. Nobody was a brahmachari at that time. In Charaka's time, in Atreya's time, it was in Atri Krita Yuge Vaidyaha. It was in Krita Yuga that this Samhita was originally written. So there Brahmacharyam was natural for people. So Brahmacharyam is mentioned as one of the Upastambhas. Whereas in Vagbhada's time, everybody become Vishayi. Vagbhada says, Vajikaranam Anvichet Satadam Vishayi Puman. Charaka says, Vajikaranam Anvichet Purusho Nityam Atmavan. In Charaka's time, the Purusha was an Atmavan, self-controlled, Jitendriya. But in Vagbhada's time, they were Vishayis. So there was no point in telling Brahmacharyam to people. Today also that is the thing. There is no, today it has to be a Brahmacharyam because nobody is following Brahmacharyam. So to control or regulate their sexual behavior, sexuality was considered as one of the Upastambhas. And the goal was not to allow people to do it, but to regulate it properly. As the Bhagavata says, Loke vyavaya amisha madhya seva swabhavika nahi tatra chodana. Vyavaya amisha madhya seva is swabhavika. And how do we control them? Vivaha Suragraha Yajnaihi Tesham Niyamaha. So there is no rule that people should do Suragraha and drink alcohol or do Pashuhatya and do Yajna. If you are going to eat meat, some regulation has to happen. So all these three instincts were controlled in later times. When Kali Yuga came, people became incapable of Brahmacharya. So that is why Vagbhada mentions Abrahmacharya instead of Brahmacharya, because people were already following Abrahmacharya and there was some need to regulate it. Is that clear? Any further question about that? So this is what is discussed. Vigna Bhuda Yada Roga Pradurbhuda Sharirinam Tapopavasa Adhyayana Brahmacharya Vradayusham Tada Bhudeshu Anukrosham. So when the rishis saw this happening, people are not able to do tapas. And they felt so sad. What people need is not just health. You get health today, we use it for indulgence. Yes, Ayurveda talks about. So there's another question. Does Roga here include mental health? It's so obvious. Because we are saying Roga is a obstacle, Vigna for Tapa, Upavasa, Adhyayana, Brahmacharya and Vrata, which are all possible only if you have mental health. Ayurveda is fundamentally talking about mental health only. Health includes definition of mental health. So Sushruta says, Samadosha Samagnischa Samadhatu Malakriya Prasanna Atmendriya Manaha Swastha Itya Vidhiyate. Prasanna Atmendriya Manaha Swastha Vidhiyate. So if you are not a Prasanna Atma, if you are not a Prasanna Manas, then you do not have mental health. So Vigna Bhuta Yada Rogaha Pradurbhuta Sharirinam Tapopavasya Adhyena. So Ayuhu is going to be explained later. There are many definitions. Sharirendriya Sattvatma Samyogo Dhari Jeevitam Nityagascha Anubandhascha Paryayer Ayuruchate. So Ayus is considered to be a samyoga of Sharira, Sharirendriya, Sattva and Atma. So it is a coalition. When all these four things coexist, then we say somebody has Ayus. A Shariram by itself cannot create Ayus. Indriya by itself cannot create Ayus. Atma by itself cannot create Ayus. Ayus is a samyogam. Because it is a samyogam, it is kritam. And that is why there will be a viyoga someday. That is why Ayus is not permanent. In a gadau, gachad, any samyoga will result in a viyoga. So Sharirendriya Sattvatma, we are going to discuss that later. So I'm not, it is coming in the chapter itself, the definition of Ayuhu. This is the most profound definition of Ayus, which we see only in Caraka-Saṁhitā. Pranayasaha Samyogam Ayuhu is also another definition. Chaitanya Anuvrittihi, that is also another. So many definitions are there. But all that are Visheshanas of this fundamental definition. Sharirendriya Sattvatma Samyoga. So which means that Ayus is a Samyoga. Samyoga means there will always be a Viyoga. So when the Sharira, Manas, Indriyas and Atma are aligned together, then what manifests as an outcome of this combining is called as Ayus. So there is a fear that any moment this samyoga will be destroyed. So we have to take all efforts to keep all these diverse, dissimilar elements together. Samyoga, and then that is why it is called dhari jeevitam. Dhari, there is an effort always to sustain this samyoga. So life is also called as dhari. Dharyate samyogaha. Sharirendriya Sattvatma Nam Samyogo Dharyate iti Dhari. So even if you try to hold it together, you have to sustain it. That is Jeevitam. Jeevitam means we have to put the efforts. Every time I eat a morsel of food, every time I breathe, I am putting an effort to do dharana of this samyoga. So whatever I do to sustain this dharana is called as Jeevitam, Jeevanam. But in spite of whatever we do, Nityagaha, Ayus is Nityaga because it is going towards destruction. It is going towards Viyoga, Nityagaha. So even if I do the effort to do the dharana of the samyoga, even if I do the jivana to sustain this dharana, Nityam Mritim Prati Gacchati iti Nityagaha. Eventually this samyoga will collapse. And then there will be a Anubandha. Even if it stops, life continues. In another shariram, there will be another samyoga again. So life and death is nothing but a series of samyogas and viyogas. When the samyoga happens, we say a person has born. And when a viyoga happens, we say the person is dead. Nothing is lost. It is only a rearrangement. And when there is a new rearrangement, a new union, and that is why sexual reproduction is also symbolic of this union. Life always comes through a union or samyoga. The male and the female coming together is also symbolizing that life is the result of a samyoga or a union. So that is some glimpse into the concept of Ayus. So from here also it is very important. The purpose of Ayurveda is not just to cure disease, because Vigna Bhuda Yada Rogaha, we are wanting to cure disease because we want to empower people to do tapas, upavasa, and adhyayana. Not just become healthy, but use that health to achieve higher states, higher goals of life. So if you take an Ayurvedic treatment and you don't do tapas, then it is a waste. If you take Ayurvedic treatment, you become healthy and you are not empowered to do upavasa, then it is a waste. If Ayurveda does not empower you to reach a state where you can naturally evolve into brahmacharyam, then that is not the purpose of Ayurveda. We don't want to create more healthy people who will do more mischief in this universe, who will destroy more nature, who will become kamakamis and again live a life which is again producing new diseases. If you look at that, is how the society is entrapped today. So there became a great compassion. Tada bhudeshu anukrosham. This anukampa overflowed from the sages. Oh my good Lord. People are destroying their lives. Not only with diseases, they are losing the higher purpose of life. Human life is being destroyed for meager pleasures. So it is that anukamba, not just that humans are suffering with diseases. This is very, very important here. Disease is a suffering, but a greater suffering is not being able to tread the higher path of spirituality. So that tapopavasa adhyayana brahmacharya vatayusham is really the key message here. Here, the real goal of life, the real goal of being healthy is being really emphasized. Tada bhudeshu anukrosham. Puraskritya maharshaya, the great rishis themselves came forward. Sametaha punyakarmana parshve himavata shubhe. So this is clearly indicating the auspiciousness of this. So I would say these rishis, assembled together for what we can call as the first World Health Assembly. WHO is conducting Health Assembly every year. The first World Assembly perhaps happened Parshve Himavata Shubhe, along the sidelines of the Himalayan mountains, in a Shubha place. Everything is Shubha. So a lot of Ashubha is happening in the world. And those people who are Punya Karmanaha, this is very much emphasized here, not Papa Karmanaha. They are not trying to use this opportunity for any personal benefit. It is purely inspired by Bhudeshu Anukrosham. And this is a very interesting thing. It is not mentioned Tada Nareshu Anukrosham. It is Tada Bhudeshu Anukrosham. Means not just for humanity, but the whole of creation. The rishis, their minds, their hearts, their whole beings, reverberated with that compassion for the whole of creation. And such punya karmas. So Ayurveda, that is why we say it is arsham. That is the value of it being arsham. It has come with purity of intention. All knowledge was created with no idea of any personal benefit, just for anukampa of the whole Buddhas. Sametaha punyakarmanaha parshve himavata shubhe. And they all assembled at the side of the Himalayas. And they discussed. And you can see it's a very, very elite, the cream of the rishis. Angira Jamadagnischa, Vasishta Kashyapo Bhrigu, Atreyo Gautama Sankhya, Pulastyo Narado Sita, Agastyo Vamadevascha, Markande Ashwalayanau, Parikshir Bhikshuratrayo Bharadwaja Kapinjala, Vishwamitra Ashmarathyoja, Bhargavas Chavano Bhijit, Gargya Shandilya Kundilyo, Varchi Devagala Devala Galavau, Sankrityo Bijavapischa, Kushigo Badarayana, Badisha Sharalo Macha, Kapya Katyayana Ubhau, Kankayana Kaikaseo, Dhaumyo Maricha Kashyapau, Sharkaraksho, Hiranyaksho, Lokaksha Paingirevacha, Shaunaka Shakuneyascha Maitreyo Maimatayan Yani Vaikhanasa Valakilyas Tatha Chanye Maharshaya Brahmatnyanasya Nidhayo Damasya Niyamasya Cha Tapasas Tejasa Deepta Huyamana Ivagnaya Sukhopavistas Te Tatra Punyam Chakru Kathamimam. So you can see this long list of rishis. And the commentator says that this mentioning the names of these rishis itself is Papachayagaram. Just by mentioning the names of all these rishis, because they are like the cream. Today we have G20, all these nations, all the great leaders coming together, 20 nations coming together. So this is a amazing conglomeration of the rishis. And such widespread, all the great rishis assembled together. It was taken so seriously. And all of them, they are described Brahmatnyanasya nidhayo, they are all the source of Brahmatnyana itself. Damasya niyamasya cha, they are exemplifying a life of sublimation, of self-transformation. There is no idea. That is what we are not able. I have lost all hopes of fixing a time. Because you go to these textbooks, they are not the original source. The original source is not traceable. So what we have are the memories, the stories. It's definitely a few thousands of years before the Common Era, maybe many thousands of years. Nobody has been able to see into the mists of time. So it means that it is so ancient that we are not having no clue. There's no evidence about when it could have happened. But it has been extolled as a very great meeting in those days, because all the great rishis came together. They took it so seriously. Tapasas tejasa deeptaha huyamana ivagnaya. It was as if that whole, there was no artificial lighting. The light of these people itself, set ablaze and alight that whole environment. The whole environment was brightened by the presence of these sages who seemed to be burning like flames of fire because of their power of tapas. And they all sat there. Sukhopavishtaha. Te tatra. They all sat comfortably, and then a big conversation happened between them. So why in Ayurveda or Caraka-Saṁhitā all these memories are put? This is to show the authenticity of this whole knowledge. It was not casual. It was a great exploration, expedition of inquiry and experiment, and learning that eventually resulted in the discovery of the knowledge of Ayurveda. So when the story is narrated, the very methodology, the very process in which we can rediscover this knowledge has also been elaborated. So with that, we have come to the end of our time today. We will continue our discussion tomorrow. Is there any quick question that you would like to ask before we close?
Namaste, Mahodaya. Can I express my doubt? Yesterday's last class's doubt now.
Yeah.
It's small. Sorry, actually, you have elaborated on that, but I didn't catch the summary. See, Niyatayuhu, Anitayuhu. Niyatayuhu is what I understood was Purva Karma decides the life expectancy. Then
Yes.
the Ayurveda, it helps in preventing Akala Mrityuhu.
Yes.
So Niyatayuhu, we all come under that category.
No, we all do not have Niyatayu.
Okay.
Niyatayu means that here Niyatayu means that people who is destined to have Akala Mrityu due to their previous karma. So 100 years everybody is destined. That is not Niyat. That Niyatayu doesn't mean 100 years.
Okay.
100 years Niyatattvam is not there. We are not sure whether we can really live for nobody can be sure.
Yes.
It is conditional. Aniyata ayu means that if I put the efforts to lead a healthy life, I can try to extend it. It is dependent on my diet, lifestyle, and practices. The maximum that I can live is 100 years.
Okay.
There is no guarantee that we will live 100 years unless we put the effort.
Yes. Yes.
So, everybody's ayus is therefore 100 years is not guaranteed, it is possible.
Okay.
Possible provided we put the effort.
Okay.
So that is why we are saying that our ayus generally it is aniyatam. Means it is dependent on our effort whether we will lead 100 years or not. And if we put extra effort, we can even live little more than 100 years. Even that is possible. But that is in our hands, in our effort. So it is said aniyatam. So for in those people who with their effort can extend their lifespan to 100 or more, such people's life is called aniyatam. It is not decided when they will die.
Okay. Yes, sir. It's clear now. Thank
Now
you.
it is clear. So niyata ayu means there is not much scope for effort. Whether I put effort or not because of my karma and my like suppose I have a very grave illness, like when you get cancer, you become a niyata ayu if your cancer is in stage 4.
Yeah.
Because then you can be very clear that the survival rate is only 2 years or 3 years. So in such conditions, you become niyatayu. But otherwise, now I don't have any disease, but there is no guarantee that I will live for 100 years. It depends on how I live my life. So that is aniyatayu.
Okay. Yes,
So
sir.
what Ayurveda tells us is that we should put the necessary effort to ensure longevity.
Okay. Yes.
That
It's
is a
clear.
message that nothing is got by freely.
Mm.
We have a potential to live for 100 years. The earlier we put in the effort, the longer the benefit we can reap. So that is why in young age itself we are supposed to start the efforts to achieve longevity and prevent disease.
Okay, sir. Clear it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Then that's it for today. We'll continue our discussion tomorrow. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, sir. Thank you.
स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। रामकृष्णाय ते